Very excited to be talking Rocket League here on ESPN Esports. Arda Ocal alongside Jacob Wolf. And joining us from Green Bay, Wisconsin is Adam Lawler Thornton. Pumped to have you on here. Adam, how are you, man?
I'm doing fantastic. About time you guys got us covering Rocket League here.
I like your decor.
To be fair, I was at the Rocket League World Championships this year and wrote about it, and I had a blast. That game is super
good
fun.
time, isn't it, man?
I have been passively enjoying that game for many years, but I am glad we were.
Yeah,
talking about it.
likewise.
You can do it actively, right?
Yes.
And now actively as we do this segment here right now. Lawler, let's just talk about the state of the game in just the whole catalog of esports. I mean, we all know that Rocket League is a game that's very easy to understand but very difficult to master. But where does it sit right now when you compare it to other esports titles?
It's tough, right? Like, we all know the potential, and that's kind of what we're at the edge of our seats on, is the fact that we know it's super accessible and anybody can watch it. Like, my grandparents watch Rocket League. So the fact that we have so many people able to view it, it just needs to take that next big jump. We've been around. This is going to be our 8th season. They just announced that coming forward. It's definitely not at the tier of selling out, Olympic stadiums or anything like that. But, I mean, people watch it. Our Twitch viewership is, in the hundreds of thousands. Our attendance, 10,000 at the Prudential Center. So we do well. It's just it needs to take that next big step. And what's going to bring it there? That's kind of what we're hoping for. We don't know yet. So
the fact that it is, in fact, easy to learn, difficult to master, do you see that as a blessing or a curse?
It's a blessing. Too many times you see other esports where there's meta changes in the sense of like maps or champion pools or what have you. But the fact that you can literally sit down and within 2 to 3 minutes understand exactly what's going on. You have a card, you put the ball into the net. It's the most watched sport in the world with football or soccer, depending on where you're from. So the accessibility is kind of its blessing. And it takes away from all those other circumstances that are out of the player's control. So the fact that they can literally focus on honing their skills on one specific skill set with a physics-based engine, the skill ceiling's unlimited. There is no limitation to how good these guys can get. And the fact that anybody can sit down and watch it and understand it just adds to that. So same map, same format, same style. It's worked for plenty of other sports. Why not branch that gap with the traditional and non-traditional in Rocket League?
I feel like that's one of the things that make both Rocket League and fighting games really fun is that, in fighting games, you punch someone, they lose health or they get hurt, right? It's a very, very simplistic concept, although, combos and everything else in those games are very, very complex. And so when I look at sort of the esports landscape, I suppose, I look at, Rocket League, Rainbow Six Siege, and various fighting games, probably led by Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, as sort of the ones that are next in line. If we look at the ecosystem, it's like League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Dota, Overwatch, in that order in terms of interest. And then I think game number 5 is not necessarily decided. I think a lot of people are trying to figure out what that is. Call of Duty's trying to work towards that with their franchise league. But I look at Rocket League and I look at various other things. Fortnite, I don't know really where to place it because the esports thing, the one World Cup a year, is great. But when we look at generally Fortnite in general, it's more of an influencer-based thing. If we're looking at hard-nosed esports competitions, I think that Rocket League, Siege, and Smash Ultimate are sort of the ones up next. And I think to your point, Rocket League is super easy to understand, and that's part of what makes it really accessible for everyone, even if you're not an esports or gaming viewer.
There's a couple facets to that you want to break down. I mean, Fortnite, not to rip on anything, it's literally changed our industry. You can't give enough credit to Fortnite, literally for what it is. I'm not the biggest fan of it myself, but I respect what it's done for our industry and the levels that it's brought it to mainstream attention. And you can tell the difference between the fact that their professionals are called influencers. They're not called pros, like in every other esport. People are called a pro League of Legends player or a pro Rocket League player. But their pros are called influencers for that reason alone. They understand that it is more of a marketing tool than anything, and by all means, they've made it their thing, which is fantastic. And the fact that you're talking Smash and other games like Rocket League, where it is a very grassroots, community-driven thing, is starting to be on that cusp of a Tier 2, Tier 1 esport, is really heartfelt. The fact that games like us have literally come from people like myself that have started in the community and pushed for my mic falling. Apologize, guys. But have pushed for literally us trying to make it a thing. We didn't have a funding from the developer at the beginning. It was just people who wanted to make it a thing. We loved it. We enjoyed it. That's how I got started as a caster. Is we had people organize volunteer-only organizations or tournaments or podcasts or what have you, and propelled it to that next level. And Smash is the same way. Nintendo has never really backed it until now, and the game's been around for like what 8, 9, 10 iterations of the game. So the fact that they're finally starting to get that mainstream attention is phenomenal, and it's exciting to see that literally just by sheer hard work and determination, we finally have gotten to that point. So kudos to both Smash and Fortnite for really bringing that audience, as well as sticking with it, because it is not easy. It's a grind.
So you did mention a little bit earlier that you were trying to, as a community, trying to figure out what is next, right, and how you move forward. What do you think some of the steps necessary are to take to make Rocket League even bigger than it is now, even though it's already ascending?
Yeah, I think we've all noticed that we've got a formula that works with the RLCS. We do 2 a year, which is, I think, a pro and a con. I love the fact that we get to see our entire community get together twice a year for a world championship, but I don't think the title means as much. I think there's something really special about you're the world champion for an entire year and what that means to go, like the Super Bowl every single year. The ability to come in and say, yeah, we're the defending champs. Everybody's got a target on our backs kind of situation. So I think us really starting to have more major events, $50,000 tournaments where 32 of the best teams in the world with like DreamHack Montreal coming up, is a big difference, and focusing more on that rather than on the RLCS, and then really making the RLCS this grand event, this premier event. And I think it has to do with prize pools. Psyonix is a very small indie company that was recently acquired by Epic. So maybe Epic will give that sprinkle of 100 million, or like, we don't know, right? But I think prize pools and stuff is an easy way to grab attention. You see what 30 million does for the World Cup for Fortnite. No matter what the venue is, when you have that kind of a big of a number, you can't ignore it. There's nothing you can do mainstream or otherwise that shows someone like Booga pulling $3 million overnight. Like, you can't ignore that. That's just hard facts. That's hard numbers. No matter your mainstream, traditional, whatever, esports or otherwise, that's something you have to pay attention to. I think prize pools is going to be a big difference, and finding a way to make sure we secure a lot of these top tier organizations. A big jump, I think, in not only production but also prize pools, I think will do it.
I think that the news of Epic Games purchasing Psyonix was seen as a positive for not only the game but the scene. What do you think this means for Rocket League?
I can't go into too much in detail, even though I am freelance. I'm not in an association. Like, as a disclaimer, I have no representation of Psyonix. I have been with their professional scene. I've been a caster since season 1, so we're going on 3.5 years now. But most people, on behalf of speaking, I can say we're all really positive about it. Epic has done a phenomenal job with Fortnite, and they're well aware, I'm pretty sure, of knowing, like, Fortnite and Rocket League are not the same thing. One is very, very different fundamentally when it comes to how the game plays. So just overwhelmingly positive, because we now know this little indie company that has been trying so hard and working so hard has a huge backing to support it.
I think Epic has a really tall task here to sort of take on, because you don't want to be in the Overwatch boat where you have a thriving grassroots scene and then you come in and just stomp on it with the Overwatch League and then have to sort of circle back and do something like contenders and the competitive sort of ecosystem to bring in new players. It makes it really difficult, and that's something that Overwatch has been wrestling with. And one of the people that was involved in that decision is Nate Nancer, who is now head of competitive for Fortnite at Epic Games, and I'm sure eventually his role will include some of Rocket League. From what I've seen, it looks like Epic's going to give Rocket League a little bit of time to sort of like get, I guess, in touch with Epic Games and in terms of like being in sync and let some of their plans play out. But it's a risky balance, I feel, because you've got a game like Rocket League that's already ascending naturally in a way that's healthy, and so you do want to make it bigger, but you also don't want to step on sort of the grassroots that exists.
I mean, to speak towards that as well, I mean, it's not like it's a new partnership. I mean, Psyonix has been making game mods or working on like different systems. Their vehicle systems that they've made for numerous games have been with the engine that Epic uses. So it's not a new partnership. They've worked together quite a bit. So this is something I think, like you exactly said, it's going to take a time for them to mingle and kind of see how things are working. I assume they just want to oversee from the top and be like, okay, this is how you guys kind of do things. We're going to interject here, but for the most part, do your thing, because clearly it's working. So it's not like it's a new partnership with these guys coming together. I mean, they've worked together numerous times for numerous years.
Lawler, longtime Rocket League commentator and analyst, thank you very much for joining us, my friend.
Appreciate having me, guys. Absolute pleasure.
Click that subscribe button here at youtube.com/ESPN Esports, and of course, continued coverage, including Rocket League, available at ESPN.com/esports. Smash.